Hi, it's Dorothy Guiney with Scrapbooking Quebec. Welcome to another video in my series, Stampin' Up Scrapbooking. Today, I will create a 12 by 12 layout featuring some new products from the 2025-2026 annual catalog. I will be using paper, dies, and flat pearls from the Florals in Bloom Suite collection and pairing it with the Country Woods Designer Series paper pack. I'm also going to be using the Everyday You and Me stamp set for a title. So here's my narrowed down selection, and everything I use will be listed below along with my link to Stampin' Up. If you live in Canada and use the link, I will get a commission. If you have a local demonstrator, please support him or her. But if you don't and something catches your eye, thank you very, very much. Here is my inspiration, a page design from the Autumn to Remember Scrapbook Workshop Kit that released in September 2024. I've already created pages using this workshop kit, and today I'm going to be using the same design, scrap lifting the page you see on the left, only with different material. So let's get started. And you're about to see what's on my table. I do have a photo. That's me in Jamaica trying to befriend a stray cat. So right now it's matted in white cardstock. In advance, I did prepare a frame style foundation page with 3 sheets of paper, and you're going to see I gutted 2 of them. There is a tutorial on my channel where I explain how to do that, so that will be listed and linked below. So I do have the paper that I gutted from behind the foundation page. I will be using it on top of my foundation page. I also have that floral paper. So that floral paper and the pink paper is from that Florals and Bloom collection. The wood grain is from the Country Woods paper pack. I'm showing you I have a bunch of scraps here along with some cardstock that I'll be playing with a bit later on. Now that Florals and Bloom collection comes with 2 bundles, stamp and die bundles. I have one of them. It's called Pretty Florals. That's what I'm showing you right now. I have the stamps and dies. Today I end up just using the dies. And there is that Everyday You and Me stamp set, and I'm going to be using that to create my title. I also forgot to show you that on my foundation page, the white cardstock, I rounded the corners and I used my Creative Memories corner rounder to do that. So what I want to do right now, I think I'm going to show you actually my inspiration piece again. So once again, I'm going to show you that workshop guide. So the Stampin' Up scrapbooking workshops come with material to create several pages, and they also come with step-by-step instructions. That's that little pamphlet that I just showed you. That's what I created, one of the layouts I created from the workshop kit. So the material is provided. I did add some of my own. And again, today what I'm going to be doing is scrap lifting the page that was on the left in that guide I showed you a few moments ago. What I'm going to do first is start cutting up some strips of paper for my foundation page. So right now I'm cutting 3 chunks. Now that inspiration piece that I showed you earlier had 3 wide chunks. The guide had them cut into banners. The page that I created, I tore the edge. So what I'm going to do right now is just place them on my page with my photo and just kind of make a decision. Am I going to rip them? Am I going to turn them into banners? And what I decide to do is I decide to cut these strips. So instead of having 3 wide strips of paper on my foundation page, I'm cutting each one of these into 2. I will put measurements on the screen a little bit later on. So I will have 6 strips of paper. Now I will turn these into banners, and I'm going to get out this really old retired punch called a triple banner punch from Stampin' Up, which I absolutely love. So I'm just going to cut all of the ends into banners. And in a moment, I will show you how to cut banner tips on strips of paper if you do not have a punch or a die. You're going to see it's pretty easy, even though on camera I actually make a mistake doing it, and you will see that in just one moment. What I end up doing is just getting a piece of white scrap paper, and I have them cut into narrow strips. And what I do is kind of fold them over without creasing them. And I take my scissors, and what I should be doing is snipping from the end up towards the middle. Instead, I did it the opposite, so it's like I made a little arrow. So here I go doing it again, starting at the edge and then cutting towards the middle up, and that made a nice little banner. So you could easily do that with all of these strips of paper. I tidied up, and off camera I started inking those strips of paper, and the ink I'm using is Morning Mist by Versifying Claire. So now I have 6 banners in 2 different sizes that are all kind of inked up right now. I am just playing around with an order, looking for something that pleases my eye. So right off the bat, I did use that guide from the workshop kit as my jumping off point, but already it's looking different because I cut each one of those strips of paper into 2. Now what I want to do is pick myself out a photo mat, a second photo mat. So I'm just auditioning different colored cardstock. In the end, I decide to go with this wood grain paper, and I'm actually quite hesitant, but for some reason my gut is telling me to go with this wood grain paper. I cut myself a mat off camera, and I even cut myself a piece of scrap cardstock to put behind the photo and mat, which will give it a little bit of lift so that it will just pop off a tiny bit on top of those strips of paper because there's a lot of pattern going on. As you can see, I've already started adhering, and the way I'm doing this is I'm adhering on the left, and then I jump immediately to the right, because what I want to do is make sure the distance from the banner to the right edge is equal to the distance from the banner to the left edge. Once I'm happy with that, then I just basically fill in the rest. Some of them are bumped up side by side, but I do end up having to overlap a bit, and that's all okay. I do like the look. So I'm having a look at my inspiration piece again, and on that there are like these rings. It was a cut file that was part of that workshop kit. Now, obviously I don't have that cut file, so what I'm going to do is cut myself out some rings. I am using the Creative Memories custom cutting system with the jumbo circle template. You can see I have the 3 blades out. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this system, but each one of those blades has a different distance from the template. So I'm starting with the blue, which is the furthest away, and I cut around. Without moving the template, I do the same thing with the next blade, which is green, and I do the same thing with the red. I end up turning off my camera. It's a bit awkward because it was placed kind of far away from me to do it nicely. I continue doing that off camera, and I actually cut myself out 2 more rings, so I have 4 rings now. And now I'm showing you the stamp set from that Everyday You and Me stamp set collection. So I have the words "So Much Joy," and I'm going to stamp it with that Strawberry Slush ink. So that's actually a new color from Stampin' Up, and it's the pink that you see on my foundation page with that pattern paper. My ink is really old. It's probably like 13, 14 years old because I had it when Stampin' Up originally came out with that color. It was retired, and now they've re-released it. I had the re-inker, so I just re-inked it up, and it seems to be working fine. Anyway, I stamped it twice. What I will do with that is cut it out into a circle off camera a little bit later on. But what I want to do right now is a little bit of die cutting. So I have my die cutting machine here, and I'm going to cut out some flowers and some leaves. And this is from that new bundle that's in the new 2025-2026 annual catalog. It's called Pretty Florals. I absolutely love it. I only use some of these. There are tons of dies here. So I am cutting out some flowers in 2 different sizes, and each one of them has one simple layer that I can put on top. So they're relatively simple dies, which I like. When they're too complicated, I don't like them. So that yellow one has a detailed piece to put on top of it, and that smaller die, it's actually one die that cuts out 3 flowers, also has a layering piece for the top of it. So I cut that one out in 2 colors. Now what you're going to see me do is cut out some leaves. So I have the 2-tone garden green cardstock from Stampin' Up. You can see I'm using both colors. And like the florals, there are leaves in different sizes, which I particularly appreciate. You can see there's a large leaf there. There's also a sprig, which I absolutely love because it's a great way for rounding out embellishment clusters. And there's also some stems. There's plenty more dies that I haven't used, but I love what I've used so far. So I stopped the camera, I continued doing that, and now what you see me doing is basically adhering the layers on top of the flowers. You can see I have a detailed layer to put on top of the yellow flower. I'm using that adhesive called Sticky Specs from Ecstasy Crafts. It basically picks up adhesive on detailed die cut pieces. It's a sheet of sticky paper, basically. It's messy, but it works. Also, you can see for these smaller flowers, I just added a little dab of liquid glue and adhered the layered piece on top. And for those ones, I used two colors. I used that Timid Tiger, which is orange. It's a new color. And the other one, Strawberry Slush. Now I'm showing you the other leaves. I showed them to you earlier. I'm particularly thrilled with that. I have a bunch of circles here. Those are all cut from the Spotlight on Nature dies. I often use them. They are basically nesting circle dies with an embossed edging. You can see I cut out my title with the same thing, and I did do my journaling on that as well, so you can see it's kind of bumped up towards the bottom of a circle. I also have these flat pearls, which are in all the new colors from Stampin' Up, and they are part of this Florals in Bloom collection. So now what I'm going to do is start embellishing the page here, playing around with a bit of the embellishments. So I'm starting by placing the photo there along with the rings. I decided to go with 3 of them because it's an odd number. Now what I'm going to do is place these white circles. So that's going to establish the area where I do my embellishing. So I tuck my journaling underneath the photo. I like how that looks. I overlap it with my circle and the title there. Just to add a bit of repetition in the opposite corner, I add a little half circle behind the photo in the top left. And now what I'm going to do is tuck in these yellow flowers. So this is basically the next biggest thing. When I'm building these clusters, I always start with the biggest item and then I basically gradually get smaller. Now what I want to do is add some of those smaller flowers. So I tucked in the stem. It's actually got 3 stems for those particular flowers. Kind of like how that looks. It's following along those rings that I put around the photo. I'm tucking in a few leaves here. Now I'm not going to go wild here because as long as I know where the big items go, I will know where to tuck those leaves, because basically when I'm building embellishment clusters, I put the big items down first, and then, especially when I'm working with florals, I come in and tuck in the leaves in all of the empty spots. So it was going to be a waste of time if I built the entire floral cluster, took it off, and then started adhering. So as you can see, I decided to jump right ahead to adhering, and I'm starting with the photo there. So I'm basically adhering it kind of towards the top of the page. Right now, I'm really not looking at my inspiration piece. I use the inspiration piece for my foundation page to cut those rings out. And now what I'm doing is I'm just kind of moving ahead, creating a diagonal design, basically clusters in the top left and bottom right, which is something I frequently do. So once I adhere the photo, now I'm adhering the rings using that very same Sticky Specs adhesive. Again, it's great for detailed items. Your fingers do get sticky, so you have to be careful with it, but it does the trick. I end up losing battery power here, so you're going to see I come back in a minute, and that 3rd ring is adhered along with my journaling, and I did add some foam adhesive behind my title, but it's not adhered yet. So once again, what I'm doing right now is just tucking in these 2 large yellow flowers. So I'm adhering those. I will adhere a few more other things before I put that title on top of it. I'm kind of fussing a bit with the placement of those yellow flowers, but once the other stuff gets down, it all falls into place and I quite like it. But I am fussing with that large cluster, the title, and those 2 yellow flowers quite a bit. So then I tucked in those stems, which will eventually support those three smaller flowers, then jumped down to the larger leaves, tucked in another sprig. Now I'm tucking in some larger leaves. And like I mentioned earlier, when I build floral clusters, I basically worry about the larger items like those large yellow flowers and my title and my journaling. And then in the end, I tuck in the foliage in the empty spaces. It's like building a floral vase, basically a bouquet of flowers in a vase. So you can see now I'm adding those smaller flowers at the top. For each one of those, I pop them up on foam adhesive, coming in with another sprig there at the bottom, using my sticky specs to adhere that as well. And now I'm ready to commit my title, So Much Joy. So I used my T-square just to make sure that the words were straight. I'm adding a few more of those sprigs, which I absolutely love. Again, I mentioned it earlier, this floral die set is so incredibly complete. I'm absolutely thrilled with it. As you can see, I've moved ahead to adhering the pieces in the top left corner. So I started with that half circle there, then I came in with that large yellow flower. Now what you see me doing is I adhered the stems again. That time I actually pulled off one of the stems, so there's only two. I had three smaller flowers in the bottom cluster, and so for the top one I wanted it to be different, so I only added two smaller flowers, added a few larger leaves than the sprigs, and now what you see me doing is coming in with just a few finishing touches. I have those flat pearls, which I absolutely love. They are in all of the 5 new Stampin' Up! Colors. I add a few to the bottom cluster, 3 more to the top cluster, and basically that is it. So now let's bring out the original inspiration piece. So there it is on the workshop guide that comes with the workshop kit. And here is the page that I created. I actually think I did this one on YouTube, and if I did, I will list it and link it below. So there it is side by side with the page I created today. So even though it's the same jumping off point, the pages look completely different. I did switch it up, of course, but also different material really makes it look different. I've been having so much fun lately revisiting the scrapbook workshop page designs. I've done it 3 times lately. It's been really easy and fun. Anyway, this is my finished layout. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Scrapbooking Quebec, I would be thrilled and honored if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very, very much. Have a great day, and I will see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.